Actually, more rounding. I know. She's put a I'm looking at the Very cool. I will be taking it, but I haven't.
So this is how to make sure all your students get A's, right? Academic support system. So you all know Jessica. Jessica is our director of advising and our expert on all the tools. And Jessica and I partner a lot because our program is so strange that the way you would do academic support on a traditional campus doesn't work. So we're constantly trying to figure out, hearing from our partners, you know, do you guys do this? The most shocking thing that happened to me this year, without a doubt, I was at Kalispell's preview day. I had 12 of their students in an Old Testament class. There's probably 35 or 40 of their students. Half of them were second-year students. And I went to Eagle, and I pulled up the academic success page, and all their second-year students went, "What is that?" Oh. I was like, how did you not know about this? So part of what we want to do, I'm of two minds because of a meeting we had yesterday. We've got, is everybody familiar with Eagle? That's our internal web. There's an academic success page there that's a little bit of a mess because the way I work is we throw all of it up there and then we figure it out later. That's going to be cleaned up in the next month, but everything that we're talking about is there. We saw an app that Kyle's using. They're doing a district school of leadership too, unaccredited, and it was just a real user-friendly, and we're working towards getting all of our academic support with that interface, so it's very easy. And the other thing, you haven't even heard about this.
No, this is exciting.
And she's like, this is kind of exciting, maybe. Thanks for telling me in front of everybody. One of the things we're going to do is gamify it. So that you get a certain amount of points for using the writing center, you get a certain amount of points. Yeah, so, you know, we're going to be bribing people into using the academic tools they should. So that's coming, not tomorrow, all right? So academic support is a system that anticipates that your students are going to struggle, or that they're, you know, one of the things that is the biggest challenge of this program is for almost all of our students, you don't have a weekly class. So you don't have a prof that you have to look at who would ask you, why did you not turn in that paper? Right? And you can't walk into a building across the hall and have a writing center look at your paper. And, you know, but what we're finding, I'm going to share this in a different context, but I think it matters here. Kyle and I were down in Dublin, California, and we had 8 students with us. 4 of them said, and they were all younger, they weren't like 30 and older and high school was 10 years ago. They all said, I struggled mightily in high school and I'm getting B's and A's in this program. And I said, why? And they gave me 3 reasons, and I think there's a 4th. And this is my background. One of my kids, I've got 4, has not severe learning disabilities, but very pronounced learning disabilities, and we don't know how he made it through high school. He did. He's doing great in college right now through an online program at community college. So they said, number 1, it's the structure. Every week I know what my class looks like. Same assignments, different assignments, but the same calendar every week. And when I do a new class, I know what to expect. It's definitely true. Number 2, it's the freedom. I don't have to sit in a room with a teacher there doing my homework. I can do it wherever. I know my son, that's made a huge difference. Number 3 is the support. And I'm like, what support? I've got people in my program doing the same stuff as me. We talk about it. They help me get stuff in. But I think number 4 is the lack of distractions. If you've been doing this a little bit, you know there's a big difference between female students and male students, right? Male students tend not to be as ready as female students. I think of my son, he's got dysgraphia, which means small motor functions, has trouble writing, he's got dyslexia, he's got a couple other things going on. You could not design a more distracting environment than a public high school. Right? And the environment you have in your programs, our provost says this, it is the best learning environment Northwest offers when it's working right. I've been to Christy and Dan's thing where they have street tacos and study hall and all that. There are students that would not learn in a classroom environment that are learning and doing very well. So what we're trying to do, and it's funny, it's mostly second year people in here, because the first year you think, oh, how important could this be? And by the second you're like, oh my God, right? So go ahead and hit the slide. I forgot to mention this morning. You have an overall checklist for a first year coordinator in your packet. And all it is each one of our seminars, there's about 5 checkpoints, and those together make your first year checklist. So the first one is how to set up your partnership. Second one is your internship and vision for your program. Third one is promotion. Fourth one is academic support system. Okay? Oh, sorry. You said my face is still on the camera. So this is what we're going to do. Overview. Getting the coach, the coaching guide, some support tools, academic orientation. We're going to take a little bit, and I'm going to introduce it, but Jessica's going to do the smart part and tell us how each one works. So let me give us the next slide. And you're already doing the first one. Go back. First one you're doing right now, you're taking the academic support system training right now. Check that baby off, right? Okay, go ahead, Josh. So, number 1, who's the academic coach? Yeah, for most of your programs, it's the coordinator. Some programs have a separate person. Okay, it doesn't matter. They do not have to be an academic. They just have to know where the tools are and how to show them to the students. We do want them to have a BA because it's hard to help somebody do a degree that you haven't experienced. If you've got a master's or a doctoral degree, you know that each one of those levels is a whole different kind of school. And so you can't help someone with a master's if you only have a BA because you've never experienced a master's. It's a different deal. Same with a doctoral degree. They have to be FERPA cleared, which means they have to have a volunteer packed in because they're going to be looking at student records. And this is my outline. Jessica, feel free to add to it. Their responsibilities, they have to do the training. They have to lead an academic orientation. Now, they might lead it like Jessica and I are doing it, where your director's kind of giving the context, but they're the one presenting the stuff. They oversee the weekly study hall, and they're available for personal academic support. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah. Other than that, I would also say that we want to partner with you guys in advising the student support as well. So we rely on you as our counterpart at your church. So if you have a student that's struggling, we want to be here to help support that too, and vice versa. So making sure that you know that you're part of our team and vice versa. So that you are a huge part of that.
Yeah, and part of what that means is when you get faced with something and you're like, I know we covered that in the training, call Jessica or Josh and say, how do we do this?
Yeah.
So go ahead and give us the next one. So the online support tools. These are all on Eagle. It's too much to go back and forth between them, but why don't you kind of walk through what each one of these tools are?
Yeah. So the academic success page, Cary already mentioned, has a lot of our resources on it, and we're going to work on it over the summer to scale it back to the perfect essential things that you guys need. Smart Thinking is our online 24/7 tutoring service that we go through, and that has your online writing center. So they can turn in papers, and they can specify if they are a second language student and have things sent back that way. Certain APA format or MLA, any of that kind of stuff they can specify as well. They also have math, science, a few business classes on there, different things like that. So we're working on putting together a video that we'll put on the academic success page that will walk you and your students through that you can use at your orientation or your study halls if you want.
But it's pretty intuitive. You start poking around in there, it's pretty obvious how it works.
Yeah. Just start clicking, you can't break it. The second one, the NU library and reference librarians. Our librarians here on campus are available to you through the business hours, and they're normally open during the year till midnight, sometimes even later, towards the end of the year. But what's cool is they have a 24/7 live chat. So even when our library is closed and your students are working on a paper at 2 o'clock in the morning and they need help finding something, they can text this service, and some librarian in England will answer their question. They have access to all our library references as well.
Wow.
So at any point they can do that. It's really helpful. I've done it myself for some of my master's papers. It works really well. There's also
Question, what kind of questions would your students ask a reference librarian? What kind of help would they be looking for?
Yeah, so if they're needing help, even just starting an assignment, having the syllabi and being able to email the reference librarian, hey, I need to write a paper on this subject. I need to find some references or peer review articles. What does that mean? Those are some good questions. If there's a specific article they found somewhere else that they want to use, they can ask our library if they have it, or we can often order it for them through other libraries that we're partnered with. So they're a really good place to start if you don't know where to start your paper.
And they're a good place if you get stuck looking for something to say, I'm looking for this article, I cannot find it.
Yeah.
Or I'm looking for an article on this subject.
Just sources, because a lot of the classes, they require, 3 critical commentaries.
Right,
Physical
right.
studies class, and the student's like, I don't even know what that is. Like, how do I
Right.
start on Google?
Yeah.
Right. And which ones do we have in our online library?
Right.
Do we have access to this too?
Okay. Yeah. You have access to any of this information.
The library and all the resources and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
This is the cookie jar. We're opening it up and showing you what's inside.
Yeah, you can pick what you want. Also on the library website, all the articles, we have some ebooks that you can use. Sometimes we even have textbooks. So sometimes students will start there. If they're late into a class or things like that, always check the library, see if we have it. They have writing references, old syllabi, yearbooks, catalogs. They have a whole variety of things that's helpful. So I encourage you to just go in and start poking around. And maybe one of your first study halls or your orientation, pull up the library's website and just have your students start exploring it. Review the success strategy student packet. So this is something Cary and I are still working on scaling back and getting what you guys really need. But it's essentially walking your students through that are on success strategy. So they came in with maybe a lower GPA than what we were hoping for. And it helps them connect with you guys and strategize a plan how to be successful throughout their semester and their time at your partnership. And it includes things like study habits and even where are you going to study? What does your learning environment look like? What does your support system look like? What does your work schedule look like? Your internship schedule? And helping them walk through maybe the areas that they weren't successful in before, kind of pinpointing how they're going to be successful now. Am I missing anything on that?
Yeah, it's surprising how many students, and that's what we're now called probationary students, but they're probationary students. It's surprising if you go through a weekly schedule, how many of those students you'll say, so when are you going to study? And the idea that they could block out specific times to study every week is like foreign to them. It's almost like, I can't remember what partnership it was, but they were complaining in a good way that the ALAs are due on Sunday. Well, I'm always so busy on Sunday, I can't. It might have been Kalispell. And I said, why don't you just give yourself a due date of Saturday night? And half of them were like, that's the greatest idea I've ever. And I'm like, really? And I'm looking at the coordinator and you're like, I don't know where they are. It's called turning it in early. You're allowed to do that, right? So there'll be things that you take for granted. And it'll be life-changing for them. And you're not just helping them academically, you're helping them with managing their life.
That's right.
Because they're learning how to manage stress and how to manage multiple priorities.
And to add what Cary was saying, some students I've run into that also struggle, it's not so much knowing the work, it's when am I ever going to have free time? So some of the students even scheduling in free time for them.
Right.
Hey, you have a 2-hour block here. You can do whatever you want. And so sometimes that helps give them a little perspective of, okay, if I can make it to this point, I have some downtime to do what I want.
Right.
And it helps them get through and stay motivated.
And then that's a good segue to writing and info geek videos. So we've got these videos that I really like. What's the guy's name? Thomas Frank. He's got one that is the science of studying. And he talks about how you arrange your study time. Because we all know when you say, I've got 8 hours blocked out to study on Friday, what that means. I'm going to study for 2 hours and then kind of mentally wander for 6. Because you can't do it unless you're really under the gun. And that's why some students teach themselves to always procrastinate because they don't get enough adrenaline until it's due tomorrow. And then, well, he talks about your study space. He talks about how people best study in 20 to 30 minute increments and you need a reward break. And then you got to have to find your reward break and get back to the study and don't do it for more than a 2-hour block before you. So it helps them learn how to manage themselves. The writing videos, and these aren't up yet because we want to put them on one page. But it's just a bunch of videos that kind of look like Sesame Street. But it's like, what is a thesis? A thesis is, and it's life-changing for some of these students, even though they've gone through Comp 1 and Comp 2. You know, and you'll watch the video and they're like, I never knew that. And you're like, you got an A in Comp 1. How do you not know this? But contextually, they're like, oh yeah, that's right. So those are good things. And I'm going to go ahead to the next screen. Not this one. We're going to talk about possibly how to use them. So second thing is to run an academic orientation, and we've learned some pretty important things about that in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, we were trying to do a student orientation to your program and an academic orientation at the same time. How did that work? Because they don't care yet. They're excited about the program, they're meeting their new friends, yeah, class, whatever. So, you know, maybe in your orientation, show them NU Online and how that works. But even that might be too much. What we're suggesting is use your first weekly study hall after school starts or the week before, but after's better to do your academic orientation. Because that's giving them a day or two to go, uh-oh, I got what, do, when, I don't know how to do this. And so in academic orientation, we've got some tools to help you, but it's really simple. Just walk through the stuff with them. Demonstrate how NU Online works or use the demonstration video. Demonstrate, just poke into smart thinking. And what I'm going to suggest is next week for study hall, you say, everybody bring your first paper to study hall, we're all using smart thinking. Because a lot of them is just the fear of the unknown, and they use it and they get productive comments back. They're like, why would I not use that? And you are going, yeah, that's what I've been saying. One of the things you need to do is teach them how to communicate with the professors. One of the things that came up this year, we do not have this very often anymore with our professors because we've trained them, but once in a while you'll have a professor who thinks your students are all 18-year-old irresponsible, just kind of, oh, I was late because they don't realize how much your students are taking on. One way to communicate with the professors is that profile page. Have them do a video that just describes their life. You know, if I was a professor and I just see, oh, you want to turn in late, if I know you've got a 20-hour-a-week internship, you're taking 2 classes, working a part-time job, and you got a family, you ask me for an extension, I'm going to like, yeah, no problem, I understand. But also that it's okay to reach out to them, that if you miss an assignment, just giving them permission and showing them how to do it. That's a student profile and set a weekly study schedule. There's other things that different programs do. Would you add anything to that?
No, these are the basics. I mean, these are the things that we've seen the students really struggle with as a collective group, and that we've seen the most success when they do these things. So, and to echo what Cary said, communicating with the professor is a huge thing. So many students, I communicate way too late in the process. They're already behind, they're already struggling in the class, or they're afraid or intimidated by them. But just opening that door first week of class, introducing themselves, having them do their profile, really adds more of a personal touch and their views in a different way. and humanize them a little bit more. Because in an online environment, Christy's taught online
Yeah,
classes
it's been
too.
both sides.
Yeah, you have both sides. So it's good to add any personal touch that you can on both sides. So we're working both on faculty and on students to try to bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, it reminds me of a lot of students when they have a bill due for college and you tell them to call the financial aid office. They've never owed anybody money before. And so they're afraid to do it. And part of what you have to do is to help them understand, if you owe someone money, they like it when you call them and tell them how you're going to pay. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. If you're in a class, the professor's teaching it because he wants to help you or she wants to help you. They like to hear from you. It's an adult relationship. So it's just, for some of them, it's just a maturity thing. Go ahead, Josh. So weekly study hall. I could give you a list of 20 things that 4 years ago we said, here's an idea, do what you want. And then the second year we said, here's a little structure, do what you want. And then the third year it's like, here's a lot of structure, you don't have to use what we'd like you to. And by the fourth year we're like, and the coordinators are saying that's not enough, here's what you do. Just do this. And we're at the just do this standpoint of study hall. Because we're finding the partners that just do this have a lot more success. I would have a weekly study hall, call it academic success, whatever euphemism you want to get it. It's where you sit around the table, they're studying, the coach can check their grades, can pull people aside and say, hey, I saw the comments in your paper, it looks like you're wrestling with this, let's do this. But here's what else I would do. San Jose is where we got this idea. All first semester students, if you have adult learners, you got to think about how this will work, but it's not a bad idea. All first semester students are required to come to a weekly study session. If you maintain a B average, you are allowed to not go to study session. As soon as you get below B average, you have to come back and come every week. The gal in San Jose said the one student that got a B average still went to study hall because she realized it helped her get her B average, so she didn't want to miss it. So minimum GPA. Academic success students have to be there. Yes, sir.
We're working with a wide, broad geographic.
Right.
So how?
So you're going to have to figure. You're also working with adults. So what you're doing reminds me of John Wilkie in Southern Idaho. He's not working with adults, but he's working with a lot of different people. So what he does as a coordinator is he has a video or a phone call check-in with them once a week, twice a week. Because it's not reasonable for you to expect your people who are all pastoring all over the place come to my church and they're going to say, I'm not coming to your program anymore, right? So you've got to figure out the way to do it. John uses that program Zoom, and there's a free version. You can do half-hour meetings, and he's having great success with that all over Southern Idaho. So you would just take this stuff, and as you're getting to know the student, you talk about, hey, have you used the academic or the tools? Have you used the writing center if you're having trouble with it? So you're basically the mechanic coming in, trying to figure out what they need, and you take what they need here. And you may have something that you just, instead of the weekly study hall, you have like a 4 or 5 week schedule that when you meet with them the first time you go over this, second time you go over this, So yeah, it's just how do you do the function. I see, hear me fudging a little bit. I'm not saying you have to. If it was me, every week I would take the first 15 minutes. I would review and discuss one of the videos from Eagle. It could be what is a 5-paragraph essay? Page 1, and it's almost got Big Bird in there. But what did you learn from that? How can you apply it this week? Or one of the study skills videos. How to set up your study space. And just use it as a way, because if you say, hey, you all need to use it once a week, they won't. If you start using it with them, some of them will start using it because they're going to realize, there's some good stuff in there. And every week it's up on the screen, you're showing them where it is. And hopefully we're going to, by fall, have it gamified. So you'll have stupid people like me that don't really want to help, but I got to get more points because I got to beat Jessica in the academic studies game, right? We may get pseudonyms like I might be Peter Quill and go in there.
That's
and see
a go-to.
Yes, that's it. And then what I would do is I would take the major tools, and say, okay, this is our first week, here they are. Next week, all of you need to have your rough draft in, ready, and we're going to submit them to Smart Thinking. You're doing two things there. Number one, you're introducing most of your students to the concept of a rough draft. Right? Most of your students come in and think the way you write a paper is you just kind of write a journal entry and turn it in and call it good, right? So, and number two, you're going to show them how to use it, and then say, hey, did you get the thing back? How did it work? And you're going to build some traction. Next week, we're going to, and maybe you just do it together. You all take an Old Testament. Let's ask some stupid question about the Old Testament from the tutor and see what happens. You know, just use the tools.
Yeah.
And then your weekly agenda for this is you're doing that. They're able to do homework. You get to have all your students in one room, check their grades. I mean, you know, you do this. You look in, oh, you're missing an assignment. Christy, let's talk. Right?
Yeah.
What's going on? And don't do it right then. We are turning this assignment in before you leave today. Because if you've done this a little bit, you know how quickly they can get in a hole. And then you teach, and this is the part that's going to be on tape, but sometimes a C is good enough. Sometimes you're behind, and what's keeping you from turning this in is you got to do a picture perfect project. Let me tell you, the difference between a D and an F is a lot on your grade. It's 50 points versus 0 on a typical project. So you don't want to tell them to slack off, but it's like life. Sometimes you say, hey, just do a rough draft and turn it in and call it good. You know, get a participation grade so you don't fall behind or it's going to affect the rest of your thing. What else would you say? This is our academic advisor. I'd like to hear what she thinks about that.
No, I agree with Cary. Some of the things, what I've run into is we have students that don't turn anything at all, but some of them do it because they think that they're having control over it now. And so they're like, well, I didn't get an A because I didn't turn it in. And so some of that, especially with your adult students, you have that a lot because they're wanting that A, they're striving for that A, they live and die by that A. So getting them to the point where they can realize, hey, you know what, if you don't get this in, this is kind of the snowball effect. You have now 4 assignments and now 5 assignments that are due from that previous week. So making sure to stay on top of those grade checks, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, are extremely important. And I've seen more and more students that fail courses just because they didn't turn stuff in, not because they didn't get the content.
All right, what do you got next? Any questions on the study hall? I guess one other thing I would say is I think tables and chairs and, you know, more of a study type of environment's better. I know probably part of our partners have more like Starbucks lounges in their lobbies and they just let them kind of hang out. Whatever works, we don't have it, but just make sure that it's working. I am one of those people that does better work in a Starbucks than in a classroom environment, so I get that.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite, and I need the quiet study girl where I see nobody else. So making sure the environment is tailored to what really is going to be successful.
Which might mean that you have both environments, and there's some students you need to say, you know, I know that chair is comfortable. Let's see what happens when we move into a room. Or the opposite, what you can't, because if you put me in a room like this, I will not be able to focus. If you put me in a busy Starbucks, I'm as happy as can be. I can focus through, and it's just different wirings, and you know, so you get to learn your students, and some of them will be surprised. That's weird. I never stayed at a table. I got all this done. Right? So, things to know for the first 2 weeks of class. Is that a separate slide? Go ahead and see what's next. Yes. Take it away. This can make or break your program. Understanding how the first 2 weeks of class. Am I overstating it?
No, those are going to depict how your students do in those classes. The first week, so how we kind of run on our end, we go in and we start checking that first week to make sure your students are participating, and if they haven't, we are sending them reminders saying, hey, you have stuff due Thursday. You had something due on Thursday. Next thing's due on Saturday. You still haven't done that.
And logging in is not participating, right?
Correct. In order to be actually verified as having gone to class, they have to do at least one learning activity that week. practice quiz does not count. It has to be something that's actually graded. So attending that first week, one gives them a little bit of ownership. It lets us know on our end that they're intending to take this class, and it gets them started on a solid foot. So attending that first week is extremely important. Let's see, withdrawals, I'll skip down to add drop. So that first week of the class is add drop. So if they decide they don't want to take this class or something has come up, they have those 6 days to actually drop the class. What that means is that if they let us know by that deadline, it goes away as if it never existed. They won't be charged for it, it won't show up on their transcript, it just magically goes away. Anything after that period is then considered a withdrawal, and what that means is that a W goes on their transcript. It does affect their academic progress as far as financial aid and stuff like that, so it has more consequences.
Right?
And they have to pay for it, so it has more consequences to it. Granted, we do want them to withdraw if they're going to fail, of course, but it's something to think about going into those withdrawal deadlines. Okay, is it really better to just try to turn stuff in and get the grades, like what Cary was saying, or if withdrawal is actually better? And that's where we rely on you guys to have those conversations with those students, so when we get a withdrawal form, we know they've already had the discussion that this is the best option. Yeah.
So your students actually also have the ability to access their course 5 days prior to the actual course
Yeah,
start?
almost a week ahead. Yeah.
Almost a week. So it would be best if you reminded your students go in early rather than like the week of ad drop. It's actually better for them to go in the week before and take a look at their course, get in it, and they can even start doing assignments then. And that puts them a week ahead of like the actual semester and everything. So.
And that I didn't say it that way, but that's the point about study hall. You do it a week ahead of when classes start, but when NU Online's open, so they're not under pressure yet, but they can see everything and you can start the process the week before. We already talked about how to dig a deep hole, just don't turn in assignments. It snowballs, and I already talked about when good enough is good enough. You know why they call good enough good enough? Because it's good enough. And sometimes, and you know how life works, sometimes good enough is good enough. That extra effort to get up there, sometimes it's very worth it, and sometimes there's not much return. So, you know, go ahead. Grade checks.
Can
Go
I
on.
say
Yes.
a quick thing about the digging a deep hole?
Yes.
This has been a learning curve for me. If you're in your first or even your first couple years, a bunch of your students are going to be taking Comp 1 and Comp 2. They put those right up front so that they learn how to write all their other papers. And I think I don't know if it's both of them, but I think it's Comp 1 where the assignments build on each other. So if they don't do their writing assignment week 1 and then they think, oh well, I'll catch up, I got 6 weeks to get my A, the week 2 assignment is based on the week 1 assignment, and it's based on the feedback that they got in a timely way from the week 1 assignment. So we have one student who was getting A's in all of his classes, but he was delaying and turning things in late, but he was so smart, he would get 100% on everything and still get, with the late thing, he would still get A's. And he hit those comp classes and he flunked out.
Right.
Because he couldn't do the week 3 assignment, he couldn't even do the week 2, there was no way to catch up. And then you're putting pressure on the professor and saying, could you please grade my 3 late assignments so I can do week 4? And they've got other things to do
Right,
at that
right.
point. Or they're like, you know, when I get to it, I'm going to
Yeah.
grade the people who were on time first. And so that was a big one for me.
So every week 3 and 6, we, and by we I mean them, send out a grade check report, which means we let you know of every student who's getting a D or an F in every class. So tell us about that and what that has to do with that.
Yeah, so week 1 we've already talked about. Week 3 and 6, we run a report out of our system that shows all of our students and how they're doing their classes and missing assignments and all that fun stuff. So anybody that has a D or F at the point we run their assignment, we send that list of students to the appropriate coordinator. Hopefully that's not a shock to you because you guys have been checking the whole time anyway. But this is your opportunity where we're kind of saying, hey, we have a call to action here. Your students aren't doing very well. It's time to have kind of this conversation. So So at week 3, there's still potential they could catch up depending on their percentage in the course, but we want to have that conversation with you guys and have you guys talk with your students about what they should be doing to catch up. At week 6, if they're still getting an F, that's when you start having that withdrawal discussion. But anytime you get an email like that, it's more of an FYI because hopefully you're already checking, but also a, hey, we're relying on you guys as the academic coaches and coordinators to have those conversations with your students. And also reminding you that we're here if you guys need help with resources, or I'm here to help have those conversations with some of the students if you need it, things like that. So when you get an email like that, it's really important. So following up on that. And if you ever have questions about it, just reply back to it. One of us will answer and get back to you right away. The actions, I just covered that.
Okay. Next. Oh yeah, we went through this. These are things, steps you can take with a grade check student. Basically, you're treating them as a probationary student.
Mm-hmm.
You know, number 1, meet with them and say, dude, what's going on? You know, and try and determine, is it a procrastination issue? Is it a fear of technology issue? Is it an academic issue? First step is, what am I really dealing with here? Because if you're helping them with academics and they're having trouble getting the papers in, you're not helping them. If I were doing this, I would meet with them at the grade check and say, you are not doing any internship until all your week work's caught up. It's that important.
Yeah.
And your internship credit may be at risk if you don't get it done this week because you can't get it if you're not participating. That's a big stick you have, right? That's the communicate with the professor, right? Hey, have you reached out? Have you told the professor? Don't say, please do it. Laptop's right there. Let's do it right now, because you're showing them how to communicate with the professor. Ask the professor, send an email, however you want to do that. You and I are going to be sitting down every week in study hall until we're back on track.
On the email, I have them copy me on the email, and then if sometimes they can't even, sometimes they'll leave stuff out of the email, and then I can
You can say, by the way, didn't you want to mention?
right, you broke your leg, or
Yeah, yeah.
your baby has the flu, or whatever, and then it also gets my contact information in there, so that now the professor knows who I am,
Right.
my phone number, and
Now, one thing with that is you may have to explain to the prof who you are,
Who you
because
are,
just
what
because
you
they're
are.
teaching for us, they may not be familiar with this program.
yeah.
Because you've got online trad and MPP students mixed into those classes. And I would, if it's a study problem, I would immediately grab the right study tool and just use it with them right there. Okay, what's next? Oh, so as we always do, our program grows and we get really happy with how it's going, and then something blows up in our face. It's something that could not have blown up in our face 2 years ago because we hadn't run into these problems. One of them is grad audits. The secondary part of that is now that we have 370, is that how many students that we had, continuing students, to re-advise?
Yeah, I think we're at 340 now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's students
A
that are
lot of them.
continuing that they have to advise. That's 3 times as many students as we had to advise the first year totally. So there's new things that came out. What happened with a couple of students, and this is a total, we could have never anticipated it until it happened, now we got to do it. They thought they were graduating in spring, they got a grad audit, and they found out they were graduating until fall. Tell me how that would go with your students. And we're like, okay, so Jessica was uncomfortable putting this up here because it's an idea. And we think it's the right idea. We've done enough kind of field work to say, I think this is going to work. But the way we're looking at it now is, what are the key points that we want your student sitting down with Josh or Ian? Yeah, we haven't mentioned, we got a second full-time Josh now. So that's good. So what we're saying is, and I'd love input for those of you who've been running the program for a while, a student gets accepted. They should be able to have a Zoom meeting with Josh or Ian, say, hey, do you understand? Here's when you're probably going to graduate. Here's what your classes will probably look. Do you have any questions? 5 or 10 minute meeting, but it can just calm them down. And then the thing we need help from you on, every spring we have a challenge. Right now it's the 340 students that we think are continuing. If we get them advised and registered before they leave in April, there's a way better chance that they're coming back than if we just kind of hope to catch them in the summer. So there's different ways we want to do it. Is anybody from Kitsap here? Yeah, we did you guys. I was out there. Josh and our financial aid people had Zoom offices open. And I was standing out in the hallway. What's your name? Jessica? Okay, Josh, this is Jessica. Have a 5-minute meeting with Jessica. Okay, you're going over to financial aid. Tell them your name. Next. And we in an hour advised financially and academically, I think it was 8 or 9 students. And Josh was a little suspect of it. And then he did it the first time I said it worked. And I think your response was, I think I just saved myself 100 hours worth of emails.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the students, and one of the things, I don't know if you remember that, Josh was like, well, I didn't do much. And I said, Josh, what you think is not much is life-changing to this student, right?
Because you're in it every day.
Right, you're just like, everybody knows this, and we're like,
Right.
I gotta take math?
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Here's how well that worked. After doing that with 2 partners, it worked so well. I actually sent out an email blast to all my students saying, "Hi, my name is Josh. I would love to advise you via video. So set up a meeting with me. I have and I'll give my link, but it's a calendar link so they can actually look at my availability. And I was like, if you're interested, let's sit down, do a video chat, and I'll just advise you for fall. My schedule is booked out with students, literally for the next 2 weeks because it only allows them. But every week I have meetings with students every single day, and I've done about 50 to 60% of my advising just that way. It's a 15-minute conversation. They get done, and by the time they're done, they know their schedule. Their schedule is off to the registrar, and they're on their way to advising. That's how well it works.
Yeah.
So,
And we're going to be trying stuff. This is typically how it works. I've got this going on with Jessica, I've got this going on with Jim, and I've got this going on with Becca with 3 different issues. I think this is going to work. And they're like, I don't know about that one. And I might be right and they might be right, but this is how we find new stuff. I'm not afraid to just crash and fail. So one of the things that I think is very effective is if you have 5 or 6 or more students, let's do it as a group. So either what we did with KidSat, where I'm coming out to do a visit while your students are there, and for 1 hour we're going to be doing these appointments, or what we're trying to set up with ICLV in Las Vegas right now, where we just set it up and I'm on a Zoom kind of saying hi to the students, Josh is there, but we get all your students in one place so you're able to ride herd on it and kind of figure out what's going on. And it's obviously, as much as it's effective to do 1 at a time on a Zoom, to do 8 of them in an hour and to have the coordinator involved. Another thing that I'm thinking of, they haven't, so we're partners, okay? You get this. And I'm trying to get. I've had 2 or 3 coordinators that have said, if in January I could meet with Josh and just run down my students, it gives him the corner of the puzzle. It makes it so that Josh doesn't advise somebody full time, and you're like, oh, they can't do full time. I didn't know that. It allows you to set a time when you're going to have the students there. So it's just we're trying to scale up what we've done. Does that make sense? And it's important to us that we get as much help as we can from you to get it done.
So we're going to be working on kind of a calendar of important dates where we're going to want to schedule appointments with you as coordinators to go through your students, get you involved in more of the graduation audit process because we're cleaning that up, and make sure that we're kind of planning ahead for these things and make sure that we're partnering together on this, because a lot of it we rely on you guys because you're the boots on the ground. And if we're chasing somebody around for 6 months trying to get them to fill out a graduation application, we're going to come to you and say, hey, this is what's going on. They graduate in 6 months. We need this. So really cleaning up this process is the direction we're going, and love all your feedback and input and the ideas you have that would help you guys.
Yeah. And like the new partner checklist, Becca and I are working on this. Then we're going to go to advising and vet it, and then financial aid. We're going to put an annual calendar in your hands, and it'll be divided up fall semester, spring semester, summer. And what we're gonna start doing is at the beginning of each one, I'm just gonna write a letter and say, hey, here's what's going on in the program, here's what's new, here's what we gotta look at, and we'll just pop up whatever the next semester is gonna come on top. So in January, it'll be spring on top, and then you can look at summer and fall, and then at the beginning of May, it'll be summer on top, you know what I'm saying? And that way, you've got a little heads up, oh, grad audits, that's right, or grad audits, what does that mean? Call Becca, who do I talk to? Talk to Jessica, talk to Josh. And so it's reasonable for you to be able to get on top of it, because we're telling you what to expect each month. So, yeah, Alan, the degree progression and advising training. This is like totally my idea. Jessica likes it in principle, but we have not put any skin on the bones. I talked about this in the last session about promotion. One of the things I feel like I've not done well for you is provide you tools to help you understand who different degrees are for. You know, what's the difference between an organizational management and a business management and organizational leadership? Why would a ministry student take a psych degree instead of a ministry degree? Are there other options? So one of the things that we're going to work on is putting a tool in your hands that there is one in your packet, but it's more of an academic description of each degree. We want to do like a personal narrative description. This kind of degree is for this kind of person. The kind of person who takes this degree might be looking for a career in this and this and this and this. They would like doing this kind of stuff. I mean, it's kind of a joke because Jim's a stats teacher, but it's not a joke. Organizational leadership is for business people that do not want to do math because you don't have to take stats. That's simplistic, but
It is, it's business-like. Organizational management is
right.
business-like. without
And you
the-
have people that want to do a business degree like me that want nothing to do with anything beyond algebra. I'm not joking. My college trade class, I was in it for 2 weeks, and I went up to the prof and I said, I think I'm finally getting it. I just don't understand what a cost is. I can tell who knows math. You know what he said to me? You're looking for math? B, here's a pink slip. Take it to the office, we'll put you in the right class. And I said, thank you. I really didn't understand what it was. So, let's see. Yeah, which degree is best for which student? Degree narratives. Why is there so much writing is one of the questions you're going to get. The reason is writing teaches you to think. It teaches you how to organize your thoughts. It teaches you how to make a point instead of just wandering around. Talked about the continuing students advising Zoom and graduation. I'm not really sure why this slide's in here, but let's move on. All right, so any questions? Any of you that are veterans that would add anything, practices that you're doing that's working? Did we put everybody to sleep? Is this helpful for you?
Yes.
Okay.
I have one thing.
Oh yeah. We're gonna do your thing. I moved it over to promotion because I think it's more a promotion thing.
Oh.
But Christy, no, I want to do that here.
Okay.
Just in terms of vetting students and kind of knowing what you're getting into as you have a potential.
Am I in the wrong session?
No.
Okay.
No, I moved. I think it's, no, you were in here. You talked about, and then I put it in there, so I remember to talk about
Gotcha,
that.
okay.
But go ahead and tell us what the context is and what you do.
Well, before that, I wanted to just say something really quick that I learned this year for the first time. And that was, I have a student, she's a junior now, and I'm sure you guys told us this, but she came from high school, she had an IEP, which, individual educational plan. Okay. I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. And she had a pretty good GPA from high school, so I didn't really think about it that much. And her first couple of years, she did great in some classes, like A student in most classes, and then other classes she really struggled with. She's super disciplined, just kind of got a lot of help and stuff. And then in her junior year, finally, she said, is there any kind of support for people with a disability? I have like a severe learning disability. And her writing is just, I'm just going to say, because none of you know who it is, just gobbledygook. But she's a smart girl. And so found out that she could send her testing results and IEP and stuff like that to Amy.
Not
It used to be,
anymore.
it's Tracy Grant, but
Tracy.
it can all, I mean, if you guys have a student like that, if
Yeah.
you start with me, I can get you to the right
Okay,
place.
yeah, so she could turn in some documentation, and now her professors are not allowed to grade her down on grammar. And she's getting straight A's, which it fits is who she is. So that, I just wanted to throw that in, since I went 2 years without knowing that. It wasn't that hard to do. Now, she's responsible enough that she got her documents in and followed up with it, and she even had to push a little bit to
Right.
get that information to each professor every time she signs up for new classes, but it's working. Anyway.
And then
then
your
you're
other
keeping
deal,
me on something.
just as you're promoting and you're looking academically at students,
okay.
yeah,
Indicators.
yeah, indicators.
So, I think the biggest thing I've learned in the last 3 years is that aside from GPA and IQ, the two things that not everybody has, which I just kind of assumed, is organizing your schedule, time management basically, and then communicating with your professors. And so I started to realize that no matter how smart people were, if they couldn't communicate with their professor when their baby had the flu or whatever, then it was going to lower them a whole grade point or something.
Right.
I'm not sure.
And then I started to realize that those indicators are there from the time you meet them. So if they're not returning communication to you in a timely way, and you have to send them 3 texts in order to get an answer, or you try emailing, calling, and texting, and then finally you get their friend to tell them to call you and that works or whatever, that's an indicator that they're probably not going to do timely communication with their professor, which is one of the, I would say, 3 keys to success, besides brains and doing your homework, communicating with your professors, and managing your time. And then if you have deadlines, like the enrollment application is due by, this date, and I always give them fake deadlines so that, just in case. Right? And they're not getting anything in at the time that they said they would, they're not going to turn in their homework on time.
Right.
And so do you want to take on somebody who didn't get their enrollment application in on time and had to ask for a special, appeal, extension, or whatever, isn't returning your communication? The first year, I was just like, just give me warm bodies. I'll help everybody through. I'll carry them through. And now I kind of have realized that all the time I spend carrying those people through is time I could be out recruiting students who don't need me to do that, and actually end up with more warm bodies that are going to raise our site GPA, that are going to make the university more successful, that aren't going to drop out because they flunked out of everything. So I think the main point of that is that the indicators are there before they ever take a class.
Right.
And those, I think, are the 2 big things, communication and time management.
Yeah, we talked about it in promotion that if someone makes an inquiry, you've got to have a step that they can do, like a coffee or a meeting, and then if they want to take another step. But all you want to do is open the door, and you do not want to pull them through. If they don't walk through on their own, exactly what you're saying, you're going to have to do the same thing with turning in papers and the same thing with, and it's good to be upfront with them. Hey, I really want to do this program. Well, I don't think you do, because every chance you got a chance to take a step, you don't. And you are going to have to do some adulting classes with them. They're not going to know how to manage their time, but you've got to see the motivation.